Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you all for being here today. It's a really important moment for us here in the Digital Centre of Government. You're all used to the fact that tech companies, when they launch products, they do so by embracing the public and their customers, bringing them in to the process of testing their products, bringing them into the way that they do and design their products. But in government, we do things very, very differently. We shut people out until the very last moment, until we have to let them in. Well, that's what we're trying to change here today, and that's why it's so significant that you are here today in a government department, in the digital centre of government, because we have nothing to hide. We want to embrace transparency, which is why I've thanked the people who've introduced me, Martha and Anne-Marie. I am thanking the people who are here who have come to enjoy this session. The people I really want to thank the most are these people standing around the outside who are the data programmers, engineers, and the people deploying technology right across government. So from me, as your Secretary of State, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Transparency is really important. And it's very important that you all here today to enjoy this moment to start launching some of the products that we have. The gap between the tech sector and the public who are using our products and services has got too big. Now, in opposition, when we were designing the programme for government, there were 3 priorities that we set out for the new DCIT. The Department for Science, Innovation and Technology is so different from the one that we had inherited. Again, a credit to all of the officials, and Sarah is with us as Permanent Secretary, officials who made the change happen. Because there are 3 priorities that we had in opposition that we had brought into government. The first is that science, innovation and technology will contribute towards the economic growth of our country. This cycle that we have been stuck in with low growth and high tax, it won't fix itself. It will only be fixed if we choose to act and to govern differently. And technology cannot be a sideline activity. It must be brought into how we do it. Last week, you saw the Prime Minister launch the AI Opportunities Action Plan. That plan creates AI investment zones around the country. It sets up 2 new units to harness the power of AI and bring it into government, into the heart of government, with one of those units who are reporting directly to the Prime Minister and myself. Because when I go to Silicon Valley, I see all of the constituent parts that makes it magic here in the UK, but we're not harnessing it, we're not coordinating it, we're not focusing it in a way that keeps Britain at the forefront so that we can start actually creating the companies which will be large enough to shape the future, not just of our economy, but the global economy. And why can't we as a country have that scale of ambition? The second pillar that we are standing on, the new DCIT is playing a leadership role in, is improving the productivity and performance of government itself. Now, some of the tools that we'll be delivering that, you will be able to experience today, and from the press and other people who are visiting us today, these tools are on display and you'll be able to interact with them. But not just that, the officials, the programmers, the engineers, and those deploying it are going to be available to talk to you and answer your questions directly. Another sign that this government is throwing open the doors to be tested, to be interacted with, so that you can actually hear yourself and meet the people who are designing this change. And to give you an example of just one of the tools that you will be able to see and interact with today, and the power of some of the tools that we are designing here in this building, in the centre of government, the digital centre of government. It is a productivity tool which helps with consultations. We do thousands of consultations in government, and it takes an enormous amount of time. Why? Because it's obvious. There's hundreds of years of legislation and regulation that you need to consult with to see what advice to put to ministers about what is possible, what isn't possible, and the like. So this particular tool, Consult, works 1,000 times faster and 400 times cheaper than a human being does. That's 52 hours compared to 6 years if it was just a human working on their own. That is the technology that we are bringing into government and deploying on behalf of the citizens, the people of this country. And thirdly is the bit that I want to talk to you about today. The third pillar is the way that we are going to transform the relationship between citizen and state. because it is absolutely important and vital that we do so. Just bear in mind that somebody who is 18 years old today has never known life without an iPhone. It was launched the year that they were born. So think of the experience that people who have never known life outside of interacting with commerce, banking, and travel services, think of how they view government today, where if you want to have a doctor's appointment, you wait on a phone. You find out that you've done something wrong because you get the fine through the mail. Too late to actually make a difference. It is an alien environment for people who are looking on from the outside compared to how people are interacting. That's why satisfaction, incredibly, in government digital services has fallen 11% over the last decade. That is unacceptable. It's understandable why the gap between, why government sometimes takes longer to adopt and deploy technology, simply because the people that we are looking after, the data we hold on behalf of people, is very, very sensitive, more so than it is for the private sector who are looking after their customers. But it is totally unforgivable that the gap has been allowed to get as big as it is today. And that is what we are changing. And that is what the products and services that we are launching today will take a giant leap forward in solving. Now, one of the products that that I want to show you is something that has actually been in public beta testing for a little while. Government has an incredible website called gov.uk. It is ubiquitously known across the country. It is used by 12 million individual users every single week. Now, behind that one portal into government services lies 700,000 pages of government information. It is an enormous variety. So to get the information and type in a search question using a standard search, you've got to search multiple things to get multiple answers, and you've got to put it all together in your head. So we've designed, by working with OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, we have designed gov.uk Chat. It is using the latest technology to harness all of that information and turn it into a usable, conversational, human-style interaction with government. Who would have thought such a thing was even possible? And that is one of the key points that I've discovered about AI. It actually delivers a more human experience, not a less human experience. And this is something that you're going to hear repeatedly as we go forward. So as you can see, the conversations that are unfolding, because we've started putting it into beta testing, so we're engaging with the public, and we're asking the public to come in and test a government service. You have no idea how difficult this is for government to handle the concept of. Because understandably, there is caution about the way we design products and services. The idea of inviting the public in to test it and having the media there to see what answers and mistakes are made, because you make mistakes in public, is really difficult. So I had advice. There's no criticism of my wonderful officials. The first advice that came up to me is I should stay as far away from this testing process as possible. But my instinct is to get as close to that testing process as possible, because it's really important that, firstly, we do not blame officials when things go a little bit haywire, and we are asking things to go haywire because we need the public to come in and test it so we get the interactions. And secondly, it is really important that the public start to understand that increasingly in an online world, and government is moving to an online world, that we will interact at an earlier stage so that we can use the power, the insight, and the volume of interactions that the public can provide in testing. So yes, the chat system did start talking French midway through the testing series, but it was a mistake we learned from, which is why these interactions, because at the moment it is focused on business and professional questions, soon it will be open to the whole range of questions that anybody up and down the country can interact with government for. But at the moment it's about business questions, but all the variety of questions that are coming in, it is getting better, smarter, swifter, and more efficient and effective at interacting with people as we speak. Now let's show it live. We have Cuba over here, who is doing the fantastic technical support today. And I'm going to start with a question from myself, and then I'm going to ask somebody from the audience, hopefully one of our sharpest, smartest journalists, to ask a professional question of it afterwards, just to show that I am quite prepared to stand here and test this system to extremis. So a question that might be related to my job. Cuba, I've lost my job in a reshuffle. What should I do? Now, what is happening is this system is going away and analyzing 700,000 pages of government data. It is trying to humanize the response, to give a response that helps people move forward. Now, already it is giving me help on finding a new job. It is giving emotional support on what to do if I do. It is signposting to where I go. It suggests that I should consider alternative employment, but we'll judge that later. And it's also trying to find time, it's suggesting you make time to start looking for alternative jobs, but it also suggests that I get in touch with DWP, and luckily we have the Secretary of State on hand, so I can get the best service possible. So that gives you a flavour of the kind of richness that can be delivered from interacting with gov.uk. Now, who has a professional question that you want to ask our chat system? Come on. Otherwise, I'll have to ask a second one. Go ahead. Sam. I knew it would be you, Sam. Okay. Show the expenses for the Secretary of State. For Peter Kyle. I was going to say West Reading. Now, I'm going to be very curious to see what it says here, because we have tested this system to oblivion and used all of the testing systems that we have at our disposal, because we have the AI Safety Institute as well. And in all of the times of thousands and thousands of interactions with chat.uk, not once has it been broken, has it been jailbroken. So we are limiting the questions to professional questions and answers that help people in different professional settings. So when you try and get it to encourage it to do things that are naughty, like Sam is trying to do there, you're going to have to be smarter than that. We've got AI, we've got artificial intelligence there, we've got Sam Coates' intelligence there, and so far it's 1-0. So the next step is very, very clear, because we have this system which you can use from a laptop, you can use from a desktop, and you can use it via your web browser on your phone. These are all very convenient, and it shows the power of what government is able to do now. But let's go back to that teenager who's now 18 and just grown up with the iPhone. It is very clear that you can't just expect people in this day and age just to start using multiple web pages just so they can get all of the experiences that they expect from using apps, because apps can bring together a huge variety of different material. We also know that people who are digitally excluded at the moment, and I want to say this at the very top of the presentation before we move to the app, which we'll come to, because there are still people who are struggling to access the online world, and it is incredibly important that we never leave them behind. And inclusion will never be an afterthought. It will never be an afterthought for me. It will never be an afterthought for this government. So making government services more online, it does not mean that those people who can't access the internet will be left behind. In fact, what we are discovering is that the more we make online services easier to access, more satisfying to access, then it means that we as a government can start focusing human resources on those people who need and can only interact in a human way, and that need the support to do so. And that can be part, and it will be wrapped up into the digital inclusion work that we'll be doing and talking about a bit later. That does mean that one of the counterintuitive things I've learned about AI is that AI actually helps you deliver a far more human experience for those people using AI-based systems, but also those people who are excluded from it because of the intensity we can then wrap around with the human support that they get. That is one of the counterintuitive but very powerful ways that we are moving forward, because we will deliver public services that are more human, not less. So don't think that any of the work we're announcing today and will be announcing are taking the human element out of what we do. Today it takes 40 different interactions across 9 different organizations to manage a long-term health condition. If you have to engage in 10 different government departments simply to set up a business. This is just totally unacceptable. It was unacceptable 10 years ago, incidentally. It was certainly unacceptable 14 years ago, but it is even more unacceptable today. And that's why it is really good for us to announce that we have launched and will be launching the gov.uk app. And you'll be pleased to know I have it on a phone in front of me. And when I launch the app, you can see on the screens that it resembles the very best of apps that you will already be experiencing in life today. Now, if I nip through the questions you get at the beginning, which explains what the app does, it comes straight to the One Login page. One Login is something that anybody who's interacted with gov.uk is already familiar with. It is an ultra-safe and secure login to online services. Increasingly, services across government are moving into One Login, and it is fully integrated at the outset of using the app. Why is that important? It's quite obvious. We need to reassure ourselves that the people who are accessing government data are the people they say they are, and this is using the very best technology to do so. Once you go through that, this is the bit I am most excited about, because the first thing the app does is it helps you personalize the experience that you will get from the app. This app will, over time, harness the power of all government services from all parts of the United Kingdom, from central government, public services, and local authorities too. So that means you can have an app that is so jam-packed full of information that you can't find what you're looking for swiftly. So that process of personalizing it from the outset is absolutely front and center, because we will, as a government, start wrapping services around individual people's needs, not as it currently is, asking citizens to wrap services, to wrap their lives around the needs of services. This is fundamental, and this is the greatest step forward that we've seen. So initially, a set of questions asking about who I am, where I live, and what stage in life I'm at, so that the services behind it can be tailored to me. And then just look at what the homepage will offer. And this is version 1, bear in mind. Look at what the first thing will offer. Straight away, the services you use most often. So you could go straight into student loan, for example, and these are all aspects of student loan that you can access from the very, very first bit of the page. Then you will have topics at your disposal based on your individual needs. Every single person in this room and every single person out there in the country will have a different set of features on the homepage based on their own needs. That's why this is so special. And you only have to know what the government is like at the moment to see this and realize what an enormous step forward it's going to be. So benefits right there at the outset. I cannot praise Liz and her department highly enough, because when you understand that this and everything subsequent that I'm going to talk about in the rest of this presentation wasn't underway when we came into office, everything, including this app, was started after July the 4th last year. In 6 months, we've got this far, and with a government department as complicated as DWP, you can see just how much enthusiasm, just how much leadership is required to deliver what we're talking about here. When you go into the benefits, you can see universal credit, and these are all just some of the services that can be accessed from universal credit. This is the first iteration. It is about interacting with things currently that you need to know about your universal credit system. Going forward, it will mean you can interact in a much more sophisticated and forward-looking way. This is just the start. And then we go down to the bottom. You can see there local authority work is being integrated into the app as well. And then we have payment systems. You'll see a payment schedule. So everything you pay to the government is going to be there in a schedule, so you can see what's upcoming. If you have a bit of extra cash at the end of the month, you can pay something a little bit earlier than you would have done before. You can choose what that is, and you can interact with it in a way that's totally reminiscent of the rest of the way you interact. So let's just choose one, the top one. There is your vehicle license fee. You want to pay it now because you can pay it a bit earlier, and it'll take you to a page like this. Totally reminiscent of the way you shop, the way you bank, and the way you travel. And this is now the way you interact with your government. This is something that is completely on a different level than people have ever experienced before from their government. And then we go to chat, we've already gone through, integrated into the app, and then you go to notifications. So you can see all of the different things that you might want to be just made proactively aware of. You're in control of this. You decide what you want to be made aware of. If you're going to a country in a couple of weeks' time or a couple of days, you can ask for an alert if there's anything that comes up from the Foreign Office about that country, local weather events, and any of the government services that might impact your life. You can ask for proactive notifications on it. Again, reminiscent to the way that people interact with the rest of their lives. But for government, this is like going to a different planet altogether. And I'm really proud that we've delivered this in 6 months, and it will be announced and deployed to the country in June this year. There's another aspect to life in apps that people have got used to, and that includes wallets. We all remember the time when we had wallets physically. They went through a stage over a few years where they got bigger and bigger and bigger because loyalty cards started going into them and other banking cards started going into them. But then they went shorter and shorter and shorter because then those same cards went online into a digital wallet. A digital wallet that you'll all be very familiar with Google and Apple and other services. But it is an essential part of life, interacting with banking, travel, and commerce services, but it is something completely alien to the government experience itself. So shortly after launching the app, we will launch the digital wallet that will go into the app. And that will enable, over time, government services which rely or require or are enabled by a card will go into the digital wallet in the app itself. The very first card that we're going to announce is a veterans card. There are 250,000 veterans in our country, and we want to honour them and their service to our country by making them first in the queue for having their rights and their benefits of being a veteran fully enabled in their hand, in their pocket, on the smartphone. Now, it takes just under half of veterans are disabled. Just under a third of them say that they are lonely. Now, a veterans card can enable all sorts of access to services and benefits for them, thanks and based on the service they've given our country. They can access housing, they can access employment and health support. They get free travel to Remembrance Day services, and they get support from charities. So it is right that they are the first to go into the service, and you can see just how satisfactory this is. So at the moment, it can take weeks and weeks for them to apply for a card and it arrive in the post. Once you qualify, it can be downloaded to your app just within a couple of hours. You can see that once it's there, it will be downloaded and you can upload it into your digital wallet, and it will be there when you need it, whenever you need it, going forward. And that will be the first card that goes in. There is another card that most people in this country are crying out for to go digital, and that is the fact that we have 50 million drivers in our country. We have 50 million people with paper-based driving licenses, and it is totally unsatisfactory that we don't have a digital alternative in 2025. That changes today, because the next card that will go in this year will be the digital driving license. There's two functions for a driving license. The first is that it proves you are eligible to drive, that you've passed a driving test. Now, people have to carry the card around with them in order to prove that they have it. Some people lose it, some people don't carry it with them, and they have to then go back and report it to enforcement agencies if they're requested within a week. It's just a process that you shouldn't be having to go through in this day and age. It's wasting time, it's not satisfactory, people don't enjoy the interaction they have with it. So we will launch the digital driving license, and it will go into people's wallets, digital wallets, in the same way that you have experienced with the veterans card just now. Again, a swift, easy process, which will mean it's always with you. But there's one more thing too. There is a second function to the digital driving license, and that is, it is a legal form of proving your age. And that process we cannot leave out when we move to a digital driving license. So for me, for this government, it is incredibly pleasing for us to say that the digital driving license will have that function. You will be able to prove and verify your age digitally using the digital driving license. And this is going to be absolutely liberating, because there's two aspects to this. There's life offline and there is life online. Offline, we live in a world where the previous government lost control of safety. People didn't feel safe in streets, they don't feel safe online, and they certainly don't think their children are safe online, and we have to act on it. So with the digital driving license, it will cover two separate aspects of it. When you are in person, you can generate a code where you can hold up and prove you are who you say you are and you are the age you say you are without having to reveal your name or your address. It's a big step forward in the present offline world. But secondly, now more people are interacting in online ways. They're banking, they're shopping, they're traveling, they're buying services online, and many of those will have age-related restrictions to them. Here you've got a great example of fireworks. Here I am, Peter Kyle, buying fireworks, including, I want to add, a fire bucket for safety. And once we're purchasing it, it is going to ask for me to prove that I am the age that I say I am. It will go to the age verification bit, which you're going to see increasingly now online. When you ask for it, it's going to offer you to go to the gov.uk app to prove you are who you are, and it is this swift. It will skip to the app, it will open it, verify you are who you say you are, using biometric data. It will go straight there, and you will choose which data you release. You will have another opportunity not to release it if you don't want to. Nothing is shared publicly, but it will jump back to the app in a matter of seconds, and that means that the person buying knows that it's been done in a safe and secure manner. The retailer knows that they are complying with the law, and we as a society can know that we are using the latest technology in order to keep people safe. These are big steps forward. For government, it is a giant step forward. Now, these projects, all of the ones I've talked about, were started just 6 months ago. It's hard to believe that government can do this in that time, which is why I started the presentation by thanking those people who were responsible for doing it, because they have thrown their heart and soul and time into doing it. The state has just simply been behind for too long, and today that changes. So we are going to close that gap between the private sector and the state. People can finally have high expectations of government, and even though we won't always meet it, they will know we are striving to meet those high expectations. The products that you've seen today are just the start, and it's really important for me to say that. We will moving by putting information, analysis, and access to services in people's hands. Liz is driven by the aim of putting a job centre in people's pockets, in people's hands. Think of how liberating that is for people with multiple jobs, a complex family life, and they are the ones that are burdened almost the most with having to interact in the state in a way that simply isn't fit for the age we're living in. So today we have taken those first steps forward by putting information into people's hands. The next stages are obvious, but you won't have to wait so long because you can see the determination, the direction of travel. You will have the app by June, and by the end of this year, you will have the digital driving license. We're using technology to drive radical, far-reaching reform of our public sector and of public services themselves. The only route to a smaller state is via a smarter state. And what you're seeing today are those crucial steps forward. You can interact with some of the productivity tools. You can read the AI Opportunities Action Plan. You can now see the apps that we'll be releasing to empower citizens to take control of their lives when they interact with their government. And this is just the start. Thank you very much.